Good morning and welcome to this roundtable on the Bulgarian dimension of the European Green Deal, focusing on the business and the Bulgarian economy, its modernization, adaptation in the next several decades. My name is Vesela Cherneva. I'm head of the Sofia office of ECFR. Our organization started working on the European Green Deal in two directions. One is the geopolitical implications of the Green Deal. What does it mean for the countries that import or export energy and energy products in the European, from and into the European Union? And also, what is the European cohesion within the 27 member states on the issue of the European Green Deal? How different member states have different strategies as to how to reform their economies in the next decade. The Bulgarian debate started a bit late, as you know. It started in the past months, and now we're still discussing the hypothesis of submitting the Bulgarian Recovery and Resilience Plan, including the part on the green economy. That's why I think this discussion will be very interesting. I'd like to thank everybody who joined us and is watching us in Facebook. Our discussion will have two parts. The first part will be on the business and different perspectives and viewpoints. By representatives of the real economy. And this part will be moderated by Maria Trifonova, a researcher with the ECFR and a lecturer at the University of Sofia. In the next part, we will talk to representatives of the political parties on what they think the Bulgarian energy transition will look like and what the Bulgarian standpoint will be on the European Green Deal. And the moderator of this discussion will be Julian Popov from the European Climate Foundation. And after each part, we will have a Q&A session. Those of you who want to ask questions can do so in Facebook and also in our Zoom chat. We have two channels. We have interpretation into English. And I'm very happy that our colleague Susie Dennis, director of the European program, dealing on the European Green with the European Green Deal, is with us. Susie, you know, there's a little globe at the bottom of your screen, and you can choose the channel you want to listen to. If you want to listen, for anybody who wants to listen to interpretation, I'd like to thank our interpreters. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Maria Trifonova. Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Trifonova. Thank you, Vesela, for this introduction. I'd like to thank everybody who responded to the invitation and joined us today. As a starting point of our discussion, before I turn the floor to the representatives of different economic sectors, I'd like to show you a brief presentation just to outline some of the main points. What's the starting point for Bulgaria in terms of competitiveness. A recent survey from 2020 showed that Bulgarian ranks 48th in the ranking of global competitiveness of the International Institute for Governance Development. And although we are before some regional economies like Croatia and Greece, we are at the bottom of this ranking list, which covers 63 countries. Well, will the new climate policies of the European Union will have a negative impact on the economic indicators? Well, this is an opinion that we often hear. Or will this be a chance for modernization of the Bulgarian economy and for the implementation of more efficient technologies, more efficient use of resources? Well, all this depends on us. But in any case, the climate profile of the country and its high energy efficiency show that Bulgaria has some great vulnerabilities. Despite the great reduction by 50% of the total emissions of greenhouse gases at the end of the 80s, Bulgaria is one of the most energy intensive economies in the European Union, and it uses 4 times more energy than the average for the European Union. Bulgaria is highly dependent on coal, and it contributes to more than 45% of the electricity generated in the country. And this is information from the National Plan on Climate and Energy from 2019. Fossil fuel is also very important in terms of energy consumption by the households. The European Green Deal and the need of a green transition. Well, these are concerns not only for Bulgaria, but they create uncertainty and worries for other European countries as well. And this is shown in the results of our survey of last month. What makes us different probably from other European countries is the level of preparedness for this energy transition and the transition to more sustainability, and the clear vision about how this will happen. But our survey shows that 19 of the 27 member states are worried about unemployment because of the closure of some energy intensive sectors, also the costs for energy, the reduction of living standards, and also some 9 of 10 countries think that there will be public dissatisfaction with the European Green Deal, and this will bring about political instability. As you can see, Bulgaria, in terms of those 4 indicators, is present everywhere, which means that those 4 concerns and possible implications are leading in our country. But we have gathered here today not to talk about the concerns, but talk about chances for modernization, the economy. And we have prepared a catalogue of measures for the different sectors of the economy. And I would like to hear the perspective of the guests we have invited today in our online space. And we would like to hear from them, their views on what the chances are for Bulgaria to position well in an environment where competitiveness will be based on new technologies and more efficient use of resources. So I'd like to urge everybody to intervene. And what I'm missing actually in the public debate I mean, I'm talking about Bulgaria in particular, is the shared success and the example of green industry, green innovations. And I'd like to hear the impressions of Mr. Emil Yankov and Mr. Plamen Tanchev, who are representatives of Thracia Industrial Zone. Now, where is Bulgaria positioned in terms of green innovations? I hope that you can hear me and you have joined us and you can intervene. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy that we have a chance today, together with my colleague, to participate in this very interesting initiative and present what we're trying to achieve in Thracia Industrial Zone. We have quite a number of investors. We have some successes in the area of vocational education. This is a very important topic, and I could see that you focused on it at the very beginning. It's very important for us to develop human resources experts for this industry. And well, I can provide some statistics. The investors we have drawn in. For example, I've just been to a meeting with an investor who expressed interest. But what we've been trying to do over the past 2 or 3 years is to turn the Thracia Economic Zone into a project for carbon neutral industrial zone. What do we mean by this? Well, a lot of projects on energy efficiency. We have some experience in construction and the developments of such projects. In 2012 and 13, we have built about 80 megawatts of photovoltaic power plants. And now we want them to be a part of the industrial park and provide green energy for the enterprises. And we can see that there is very good partnership from investors who are already in the industrial zones. They are interested in this project. I mean, companies like Kaufland, ABB, William Hughes, and others. So I'm an optimist that even this year we'll probably see gradually a photovoltaic power plant that will help those companies use green energy. I can tell you much more on this topic, but what's more interesting for me is to have a discussion, to have a dialogue. Well, of course, yes. Now, actually, industrial consumption of renewable energy is probably the leading driver in the past 1 or 2 years in terms of the development of new facilities, new power facilities, renewables, from renewables. And it's unfortunate that people don't know much about it, because those power plants, they're not part of the official statistics. But I have information that since the beginning of the year, there have been applications for new for 400 megawatts new facilities to join the energy system. We have invited today Ms. Sevda Yoncheva, who's a representative of a company that is very well positioned in Bulgaria and who last year was very well represented because of her involvement of one of the largest renewable energy projects in the world. Sevda, can you tell us more about the competences of Bulgarian companies in the renewable energy sector? I just want to say that roughly 4 companies have managed to develop 5 times more facilities out of the countries, out of Bulgaria, compared to the renewable facilities in Bulgaria.
Yes, thanks for the invitation. I'm a representative of CWGO. This is a structure we created in 2007. We deal with the energy transition towards renewables. We have behind us more than 1,500 megawatt wind turbine projects, and we operate abroad as well in Europe and in Australia. Currently, we're developing a portfolio of projects in Southeastern Europe with a focus on Bulgaria, Romania, and Serbia. I believe this roundtable is very suitable to be held today so that we start speaking about increasing Bulgarian competitiveness in the context of the Green Deal, because now Bulgaria has some of the most expensive electricity, which doesn't contribute for our competitiveness. So I believe we need to keep developing renewable projects, thus substituting the coal-fired power, because our region is dependent on coal. I believe that the renewable energy sources are among the cheapest sources of mass production of electricity, and they become competitive as regards the cost of the existing coal-fired and gas-fired electricity plants. So I hope that we have a good discussion on how to build, fund, and join the electricity network to have more renewable plants. According to the latest Bloomberg report, we need to add 6 or 7 gigabytes to its electricity network in order to substitute the coal-powered capacities, which are at the end of their life. So I hope that we have a good discussion to see the touch points with the business and to create a good working dynamics between the public institutions and the private businesses. So that the National Recovery and Resilience Plan envisages digitalization of the electricity distribution network so that it can manage to cover greater share of volatile sources of energy, including renewable energy. This is very important. And the development of infrastructure because this is something that we're going to mention further in the transport sector. Are there other measures that you believe would be suitable as regards the Green Deal use of renewable energy so that it's better integrated? I believe that this should happen in cooperation between the state institutions which deal with the licensing. Of course, we need to see the creation of the necessary infrastructure which would allow the full integration of these capacities, and the cooperation between the wind and the solar energy is important. So in general, we need to have a great number of things to happen in order to see the realization of this idea, starting from the ideal level to the implementation, so that we can see a real increase of competitiveness. Another measure that I'm thinking about now is the so-called one-stop shop, which has been spoken about for years. The businesses are expecting this to take place. This is expected to facilitate the administration of such type of project. And I think that from your viewpoint, this would be useful not only for bigger companies, but also for consumers and for the households alike. This would be very important to take place, so that they have a reliable source of information. Yes, it would be interesting for me to learn how what we can see in the strategy will be implemented in reality, so to say. For example, to have a monitoring capacity, how this will interact with the business, and as you said, um, how the connection with the consumers and those willing to install their powers will take place. Another important aspect is the availability of low carbon energy. This is important not only with regard to the development of new business models. We would have different opportunities opening up ahead of us through the development of renewable energy, through the job creation, through foundation of different business models. This is very important. And on the other hand, this energy enters as a resource in the sectors of the heavy industries, the production of other raw materials, due to which its price is very important. And this will determine the competitiveness of other sectors. Let's now speak about the transport sector. And there are plans for developing an electrification of this sector, but we don't think it would make sense if we just build the infrastructure and change the car fleet. What sense would it make to change the car park if it doesn't have access to low carbon energy? This is probably one of the next risks that we would have to talk about. So let me invite now to join us uh, on this topic our next speaker. I'm not sure he has joined the platform. Mr. Tsanko Semyonov can join to talk about the transport sector. Mr. Tsanko Semyonov can tell us more as regards the possibility to electrify trains and other urban transport vehicles, and what are the options to develop the infrastructure and to use the railroads for connecting populated areas which are located close to one another. Yes, I can hear you. I hope that you can hear me too. Yes, good morning. Thank you for inviting me. Today, I would like to present you something on the railroad transport, which is not in the center of attention in Bulgaria, but it's a very good thing that in these challenging times, the European Commission has pronounced this year the year of railroad transport, so that we'll focus on this type of transport more and more. Unfortunately, what Bulgaria has included in the Recovery and Resilience Mechanism plan concerning the railroad transport does not show enough ambition to implement the ambitions of the EU, which is reflected in the questions of the European Commission. We proposed a project which is to encourage the railroad transport between Sofia and Pernik. This is a section which is fully electrified, and the project consists in buying two-story trains and shortening the interval between trains to 20 minutes, because currently it's much more than 20 minutes. On an annual basis, I will mention important figures. More than 10.5 million vehicles pass between Sofia and Pernik. 92% plus are cars. This means 16.5 million passengers. If we use the highway pass manual mechanism, the analysis of the road traffic means that it's stable between 2,500 to 3,000 passengers per hour. And the Bulgarian state railways offer only 5,000 places per day. So you see there is an imbalance between the demand and supply. The state railways have enough rolling stock to fulfill this plan. We have calculated that the double-decker trains with minimum 350, 400 places at an interval of 20 minutes throughout the day would mean that we would have 50% less cars, which will reduce the pollution by more than 100,000 CO2 per year. It will reduce the traffic jams and the time lost during driving. We are not using this time while driving effectively. So just from the reduction of the time to travel, we have calculated that we will have 51 million levels saved per year. How can this be achieved? This is one example. Travel between Sofia airport and Pernik through public transport takes not less than 2 hours. By improving the organization of the trains and the introduction of the new trains, even without investment in increasing and improving the infrastructure, although this is necessary, the time to travel will decrease to 50 minutes. You can understand what huge difference this is, from 2 hours to 50 minutes. And since the perception of the Green Deal and of the mechanism for recovery and resilience is not should be based on spending amounts. What we have for the transport sector, I'll give just an example. The national company Railway Infrastructure wants to change the lamps with LED lights. This is an important infrastructure. It will improve the railway transport, but massively they have already been changed. So we're going to change one LED lamp with another LED lamp, or a SCADA system, which will be built, which doesn't meet the European requirements. It doesn't guarantee safety. And the purpose of railway transport is better safety. So the priorities of Bulgaria in this plan are not aligned with what the European Commission would like to see. And that's why we're offering our project, and we're building on the investment on urban transport, because we increase the access to the urban transport. The implementation can be very good in time. We are going to encourage the economic, social, and cultural ties between the two cities. We're going to decrease the difference between the living standards in the two cities because this is a serious problem now. This is very important. And the development of the transport sector has to do with the numerous other economic indicators. And what you're mentioning, the development of the regions, is very important. This is one of the hard sectors as regards the transformation, because it has to do with a lot of infrastructure and it needs many capital investments. As regards the electrification of the urban transport and in the transport, in the lorry transport, we can see serious potential for our country to join the supply chains. And this is how I would like to give the floor to Mr. Yankov to tell us more about the initiative of his company and how Bulgaria could get involved in the production of low-carbon transport vehicles. You have the floor, Mr. Yankov.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you for the invitation to this roundtable. I'd like to thank Mr. Simeonov, a very interesting presentation. I will contact you. We have interesting plans so about the carbon neutral industrial parks in relation to the railroad transport. And I'd like to tell you briefly about our experience in electric automobiles, and it's part of the strategy on carbon neutrality. And in 2019, we started the assembly of the first Bulgarian electric vehicle. It's a type, the last mile delivery type. And I'm proud to say that 10 municipalities have purchased this e-vehicle. It's mainly exported in Western Europe, but there's interest from Turkey as well. But what's more important is that there's a very strong team that can generate other ideas about similar projects. And I talked to manufacturers of e-batteries. So we want to try production of lithium batteries so that apart from the e-car, e-vehicle, we will use this manufacturing to attract other investors, and we have a whole project on logistics. So we try to integrate all our projects in the direction of carbon neutrality. And as soon as we are ready, we will invite you to see how our project is developing. So, but we're looking forward to more news from you. Good luck. And I have a question now to Ms. Olga Vasilevska, who is a representative of the logistics. Is there a possibility for electrification or technological innovation in freight transport? Good morning. Thank you for the invitation to this roundtable. I'd like to thank you for all the presentations so far. They were very encouraging. Actually, our hope for e-trucks is in the long term, especially if we're talking about international transport. We're talking about thousands of miles now, and the cost to maintain the trucks and the energy distribution network, the grid. So this is a very important topic, and we actually find it difficult to develop the sector. But what we're doing here, we don't have our own trucks, and we have small experience. But what we're doing with the National Association of Forwarders in Bulgaria, we're working on the digitalization of processes. That means the electronic bill of ladle. And we don't have yet don't have legislation that would allow for this. We still use a team of people to send mail on paper, and you can imagine what costs we incur. Only original documents are considered valid. So it's really very hard. Our task is now to try and make electronic our way bills. What we need to do is to have changes in the legislation to recognize electronics way bills and transit declarations. This topic does not only concern us, but many other companies, because there's a lot of paperwork, and this is totally unnecessary. Yes, this is the very digitalization is an important topic. It's important for how we manage resources and how we take stock of the resources. And digitalization is one of the topics in the national plan for resilience and recovery. The agricultural sector, 12% of the carbon emissions come from the agricultural sector, and it's this sector responsible for production of food. And I'd like to actually give the floor to a representative of this sector. Peter, can you hear me? Good morning. Well, I'm on the move now. So I need to turn on the camera. Yes, meanwhile, I will read the questions we received in Facebook related to the agricultural sector. And one is, what would be the contribution of the Green Deal to increase the share of innovations in agriculture? And one more question.
Така или иначе може да се включите по темата за иновациите в
everybody can contribute to this topic on innovation and digitalization in agriculture. You have the floor. Just a second, I'm having difficulties with my camera. Oh, hello again. Well, first of all, my name is Petrov, and I'm the chair of the steering board of the National Association of Young Farmers in Bulgaria. Well, first of all, thank you very much for this invitation, for the opportunity to voice our opinion and my personal opinion. Well, first of all, I'm concerned with Green Deal. I'm talking on behalf of the micro and small farmers. for the simple reason that I don't want to talk against anyone who is invited to this meeting, but I can see that most people will make money from the implementation of those models. First of all, I'd like to comment on some of the things I heard while the discussion was going on. First, the photovoltaic parks. Well, for my personal farm, I'm trying to check out how things are, but I think this is not very sensible because I can only use the energy or sell the energy. I cannot use as much as I need and sell the extra energy. Well, probably somebody can explain, but this is the way I take things. And then I have to file an application so that I join the whole system with my facilities, but this application can be rejected. And then the insurance of the photovoltaic parks. We know that we have problems with the hail in the summer. This happened several years in a row, and this anti-hail system does not work well on the territory of the country. And next, the electronic vehicles. Well, my concern is that the requirements can be overperformed. And I should tell that micro and small farmers, they use a lot of all traditional equipment, motor vehicles mainly. For example, for my work in my farm, I have 9 vehicles, so I need a lot of resources to replace them and upgrade them. And those this equipment is over 20 years old. I have tractors, small, large, many other types of equipment. I need them for production, for cultivation, and at the same time, we as small farmers, we cannot afford to upgrade them, to replace them by new. Well, can you quickly answer the next question so I can give the floor to the next speaker? Well, do you think that the digital solutions in the national plan would be good for the small farmers? Well, until last year, I traveled a lot. I've been to many trainings, and I know how people work around the world. And I'm concerned that at the moment, with this measure 4-to-1, it's difficult to implement, and financially, it's not good for the micro enterprises. What do you mean? I mean, the terms and conditions, the administrative requirements, and the fluctuation in prices, ups and downs. So for small or micro farmer, it would be more relevant to use second-hand equipment, to use second-hand machines rather than commit themselves in for 5 years. And also the banking sector, for example, for micro farms. Well, the farm is the home for the farmers, and and there's a difference between farmers and investors in agriculture. So if you have just a small farmer who takes a loan for the farm, well, this farmer will have to commit themselves to this loan, and they are at risk of losing everything. It's a high burden for this. The facilitation of administrative procedures is very important, and this was mentioned by Ms. Yoncheva. And I rush now to give the floor to our next speaker on resources and their use. We have with us a representative of the Circular Economy Institute. Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? You have the floor. We want to hear your point of view. What is the potential for the more efficient use of resources? This is a very important topic in the Green Deal. Maria, well, but we ran out of time for this panel, so I suggest you just ask one question to Ms. Mishanova and the other speaker. Yes, you have the floor.
I will try to be brief, although the issues are complex, but I want to mention the topic about circular economy. For us, this is a real opportunity opening up for businesses, but in order to create the conditions for sustainable development, which should be fast and which should take into account not only the economic but the social and economic aspects. All of this should be well balanced in every project, and there are outstanding issues which are vital in order for the circular solutions to be implemented in Bulgaria. We should start with systemic education. We identified this as a key area needing political will on the local, regional, and national levels. Because if technological innovation can sometimes surpass the preparedness of people, at one point the lack of experts neutralizes the positive effects. And there is a new generation of young people very sensitive to these topics. This generation wants to have circular economy, climate change, efficient use of energy, regenerative farm to be introduced. And this generation needs systematization of these issues so that the next generation won't have the necessary experts to manage these processes and to bring about new ideas. Another thing which is very important for us and is vital for the businesses in Bulgaria is to focus funds and human resources in order to build the knowledge necessary, the competences and the infrastructure which should facilitate the transition towards circular principle of operation on a large scale and to demonstrate political will. There are financial tools on place in other countries. They are working, they are well functioning without having the ambition of just copy-pasting other people's schemes. And this is another aspect which I found missing from our plan, that the measures that were envisaged are so ambitious, so broad that any project can fit in them, but there is a gap in an adequate analysis of the socioeconomic environment that all the previous speakers mentioned, that some of the measures proposed and some of the ways proposed of how to operate under the plan are not adequate. They don't have the adequate parameters as regard to the social, economic, and environmental reality of Bulgaria. This reality needs new ideas, new competences, and new political will to listen to the people who are on site. Politicians should listen to the people and to resolve matters so that we have positive effects. I would have liked to have spoken more, but I don't have enough time. We're trying to reflect the different aspects from the different sectors. So I give the floor now to Svilen. Are you here? Svilen Spasov? I'd like to hear his point of view. Let me tell you that I'm impressed with everything I have heard so far. I would like to thank Vesela and Maria. And did you notice that in this conversation there is no oligarch here? These are only people of the upper class or upper middle class who have the initiative, and they think not only about themselves. And I'm impressed. Thank you for this. I don't know many of you. Secondly, around the world, when we speak about the Green Deal, the smart countries did an ecological transformation. They didn't deal just with the latest trends. For example, hydrogen, because nobody have dealt with hydrogen in Bulgaria, but they developed the existing skills. As an example, this is just one part of the things that I am competent about. 60% of the low carbon is by the nuclear power plant. In the Green Deal, we have 4 components. Styrofoam, I'm saying this on purpose, because 70% of the energy efficiency is by the window panes, 20% by the styrofoam, and 10% by the digitalization. In the world, the percentage of digitalization is going to increase. Then solar and wind power. In the first days of April, 2% of the consumption used is from PV and from wind farms. I'm not against this, but I want to say that focusing too much on just these 2 parts, which are for the past 10 years, have got 6 billion in subsidies is not right. I hope that starting from 2020 till 2030, these subsidies is not 0. I hope that they are 600 million at the most. Thirdly, and the previous speaker who mentioned small farming is right. It's important to see what the funds will be used for, whether for suitable digitalization or for 1000 megawatts in Haskell region to serve plants in Razgrad and Pazardzhik. And lastly, maybe 1 month ago, several countries got united in their desire to include nuclear energy in the Green Deal. Before that, another group of countries got united around the process of transformation to include gas-fired energy plants. Bulgaria is the only nuclear country which didn't sign this. It didn't sign this letter. Yes, building a nuclear power plant is hard, undoubtedly. During the past 4 or 5 months, together with colleagues from France, Germany, and the UK, we developed yet another roadmap for the construction of a 7th unit of the nuclear power plant called Zolotoy in Bulgaria. International expertise should be used obligatorily, and the traditions of the country should be supported and defended. Thank you. I also thank you, Mr. Spasov. It's hard to cover this dimension for a short time. The ideas of the business are important. And now we switch to the next panel. Vesela, you have the floor. I will give the floor to Yulian Popov, who will start, and then I will finish. We have to be punctual and finish at 12:30 sharp. So Yulian, be brief. Thank you. It's hard to be brief on such a huge topic, but I will try to be brief. This second panel is about the political dimension of the Green Deal and how the Bulgarian political parties will react in the near future and the further future as regards the Green Deal. I'm not going to have a long introduction. Just a note to the person who spoke before me, renewable energy is no longer subsidized. It doesn't need any subsidies. It is simply cheaper than any other type of energy. There are systemic issues, but no problems with regard to the funding of this type of energy. And let me say that I firmly support styrofoam. The greatest potential in reducing energy consumption is in energy efficiency of buildings. The fact that it is not being done properly financially is a separate issue. But let's turn to the different viewpoints of the political parties, albeit in such an insecure political times. Let me turn to Madam Capone first and to ask for her opinion. Madam Capone, you heard the opinion and the position of the businesses. Uh, whether the business is involved in this transformation, how many opportunities do you see for businesses, not only to insulate panel blocks of flats? There are a wide number of measures. Where do you stand with regard to this transformation? Hello from me. I hope you can hear me well because I'm on the move. I will stop any minute now. Thank you for this invitation. This is a very interesting topic. A great part of the political elite just has declarations, but don't have the political will to take the next steps. They avoid taking the important decisions. The will of the people, as can be seen by the surveys, is definitively people want clear water, clean air, clean food and nature and soil in general. However, at the same time, we don't have any pragmatic solution, which is a working solution. For example, to have a tax on hardly soluble packaging. This is delayed because it hurts the interests, and these interests can be balanced with modern solutions beneficial for both parties. And what will happen mainly, at least what we think after the Green Deal, is a hit on coal, diesel, and gasoline. There are other highlights, but hard to realize with these resources and within this time frame. I'm saying this just to be realistic. Now, to come back to Bulgaria, we know that the coal-fired power plants have no future. Politicians don't want to talk about this, especially before elections. When people have to vote, especially in Stara Zagora and Gulabo regions. You said we're no longer subsidizing renewable energy sources. I'm not going to discuss how far behind Bulgaria is, but there are no longer such subsidies. Funds are provided for innovation and for creating new technology. Wind and solar energy have turned into a business to grab subsidies, but the truth is we need to work for new technology to have coastal energy harvest, like in Denmark. Smart homes are important to have different sensors. This will reduce electricity bills. But let's agree that if insulation helps the way it happened in Bulgaria, is not the right method to proceed with regard to the styrofoam. With regard to the automotive industry, it will increase the use of electricity by 15% at least. You know that people from the UK have banned the production and use of diesel cars after 2020, 2025, although Bulgaria it, uh, place where we receive the oldest cars in Europe. Digitalization is a major task, which is why we need to have smart networks. I just want to repeat what Mr. Spasov said, which is very important. Somehow we need to think about having modular nuclear power plants, which would be a part of our future. We should carefully monitor these existing models, which are about 10. Probably in the next decade, there will be such industrial samples. There are a lot of locations suitable along the Danube. There should be different tenders. And in this way, we'll free up the fertile land so that it is not used for PVs. What we need to understand, what we as politicians need to understand is that the Green Deal is for people, not for oligarchs. That we have to make a choice between digitalization as styrofoam, between economy based on knowledge and laying asphalt. We are having this conversation in a country whose prime minister convinced us that if he spent several billion on building renovation, he would save the money necessary for another nuclear reactor. It would be an interesting conversation, but what I'd like to say today, and probably Mr. Ganef will mention this later, currently in the Budget Committee, we're going to discuss the Recovery and Resilience Plan. What I'm going to urge, despite of the harsh situation, is to terminate the efforts of members of parliament to intervene in these topics. I think the best way is to submit the existing plan and then to provide modifications if necessary. Our parliamentary group wanted to have this hearing of the Prime Minister. What's important for me is to have an injection to the economy as soon as possible. We invited GERB and the Movement for Rights and Freedom, but they didn't agree to participate. We hope that in future they will participate. I'd like to thank you, and now I would like to give the floor to Atanas Kustatinov from the Bulgarian Socialist Party.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Popov. I'd like to thank Ms. Chernova and all the colleagues for the invitation to this discussion. While I'm recovering now, I'm at home, and I hope I can contribute to this discussion. I'm in a quarantine. Well, I'd like to shed some light on how complex, I believe, the task is not only for the politicians, but also for the whole society and the economy. I'd like to say a few introductory remarks. Well, we have to be clear about the following, and it's common fault, so to say, something that we failed to do. And it's the fault of all politicians. Well, in the past 15 to 20 years, Bulgaria did not manage to consolidate on the five advantages of the economy. I'm a fan of Michael Thornton's theory, but if we can talk about agreement, consensus, well, if there is anything around which we can do this, and these are those five significant competitive advantages of the national economy that have such an impact on the GDP that whichever, well, can you briefly list them because we don't have much time? Well, I'm sorry. So we don't, we have not, we have not united around those five competitive advantages. And that's why, because we don't know where to start from, and that's why we don't know where we will get. Well, Bulgaria had to make a transition from a linear economy to a circular economy. But at this first phase of the circular economy, Bulgaria focused on the recycled industry. And in light of this task of circular economy, you shouldn't recycle everything, but based on the eco design, you have to prevent overproduction, and that's how you can be useful for the environment. So combining all those challenges we are now facing, the Green Deal, it's a big green mountain that we cannot move, but we have to use sustainably. Well, the challenge is very big for me because those few layers need to be built upon so that Bulgaria can find some priorities in the Green Deal, not only in terms of Europe in general, but also from a national perspective. Well, we're talking about the future green mix and also the approach that each human activity should be done in terms of sustainability and many others. And I hope an agreement will be reached on those issues, because if we don't go along this path, and it's a big challenge, we cannot just think that the Green Deal will come and will sweep away everything that hasn't been done so far and will create a platform for ecological industrial development. We have to focus on the details. Oh, thank you very much. And the urge towards inter-party agreement is, I hope it will be shared by others as well. And now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Ivan Hinovsky. I know he has a commitment later and will have to leave us soon. You have the floor. Your mic is not on. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you for the invitation, I said. Can you hear me? Yes. Everybody can hear you. Well, interesting, very interesting topic, especially in the context of the debates on the status of the National Energy Plan and its connection to the Recovery and Resilience Plan. And this interface missing. Oh, yesterday we had a meeting with observers, the trade unions, discussing what we should do on energy from now on, and things are very worrying, I should say. For me personally, things are worrying. The backdrop of the pessimistic trends in the prices of electricity on the international stock exchange, and Bulgaria is not doing anything. And now we have some absolutely harmful populism. People are not saying the truth, and the truth is that coal-fired power plants don't have a future. And there's an interface between the people who are dealing with green energy, renewable projects, and people of the status quo in the big energy sector. They don't hear each other. Those two groups of experts mutually deny and reject each other. And it's hard to explain how important the Green Deal is to people who are thinking that they will lose their jobs and they don't trust anyone. So we need we need an interface, so to say, between those two groups of people in the big energy system. And the conservative circles, they don't understand the Green Deal. They don't recognize new technologies. The fact the prices compete with large investment projects. For example, in Maritsa East, now there's a crazy program being discussed on the CO2 capturing. And now another element is being used, the CO2 capturing and use. And there'll be, now they will try to find places to store this. And this delays, this creates a delay, it's a worrying delay. For the discussion between the conservative circles in energy and those people who deal with renewables, who know that this is the cheapest energy. I think it should be very clearly said that we need not not just a new energy strategy. This is a cliche, but there's some we should openly do something. For example, 2 years ago we found out that there were over 3,000 megawatts facilities and for electricity but they were just on hold because they were not allowed to build. At the same time, what we proposed, and in the Recovery and Resilience Plan, we proposed this, but this was not accepted. We proposed one of the most powerful schemes, and the initiative is Energy Efficiency Plus, which means that when we use resources from Europe for energy efficiency of a family home, for example, we should it should be coupled with the building of a photovoltaic system, and this should have a priority for funding. Because there are, we have to make the owners invest in such projects, not rely on grants. And this is for the development of renewable projects in the future. And we have described this. It's called Energy Efficiency Plus Plus, and I'm talking about a smart network for consumption management. So this is a something realistic, and it can be related to the small businesses and in industry. And this is how we can create a percentage of energy green energy facilities. Just a question. Well, it's ambitious to talk about the capacity of this parliament, but would it be possible? Can we talk, if we're talking about the next interim government, but I mean the foreseeable future, can we talk about some possibilities that through the parliament, this more progressive position to accelerate the energy transition, can this be developed? Because people in Maritz East, well, people who work there, they're scared about being made redundant, unemployed. But this transition that you're talking about will make life better even for the people in Maritza. Well, I cannot make a projection whether this is possible or not. Well, it depends on the results of the early elections, because I think we all know that there will be early elections. But I'm very happy that this is the vision of the Bulgarian Energy Forum, and it's very popular with the employers and trade unions, and they say the initiative of the Bulgarian Energy Forum, and I'm very happy that this was well accepted in our party, and people took it to heart, this initiative for energy efficiency plus plus. It's a small model, but can be very successful because it can draw in grants under the Sustainable Development Program, and also personal investment, because we should know that we cannot always wait for free grants from Europe. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to turn the floor to Miroslav Panev, who is from Democratic Bulgaria, who I guess will support some of those views. You have the floor.
Thanks a lot. This is a very interesting discussion. Thank you for the invitation. I'm usually part of the first panel as a part of the business, not as a part of the political panel. But as Mr. Chinovsky said, the challenges the energy sector will be facing are huge, not only because of the Green Deal, but probably due to the fact that we had decades of lack of reforms with the new price of CO2 emissions rising above 45 euro ton. Probably the losses of the state-owned coal-fired power plant would be 500,000–600,000 per year. So it would be paradoxical that the more it would work, the more loss it would make. But the prices of new renewables are lower and lower. But if the state continues to subsidize loss-making coal-fired capacities, and not only coal-fired, you know about the preferential prices for burning gas and refuse-derived fuel stations. Now, probably the next parliament will have to make the role of the market more significant in order to make sense to invest in renewable technologies, not only for own use, like these 30 kilowatts purchased, but this would mean additional funds for subsidies. This is a problem in the energy. You know my opinion in general about EU funds, that they're amputating economic activity. They cannot substitute private investment because they should have a role to play which should be not only economic. When speaking about the Green Deal and the Recovery and Resilience Plan, we shouldn't have a different goal than to spend the funds as efficiently as possible. There was a speaker speaking on the agricultural sector. He was a small farmer. For me, the EU funds on agriculture in incentivize the people relying, the huge farmers relying on EU subsidies. We are losing our competitiveness on the EU level. You see what China is doing in Asia. We pretend to be huge visionaries with regard to visas, we in Europe, I mean, but they're acting in Asia. For 7 years, air quality has increased by 66%. So there are huge challenges with the Green Deal and the Recovery and Resilience Plan. There are chances to turn into a prospering country, but we should think about how to attract investment in efficient productions. We in democratic Bulgaria had a meeting with the unions, and they said they did not have a need for additional funds for introducing new renewable energy, but they needed help to store energy, which is the next step. As Mr. Hinuski said, carbon capture is something. Hydrogen is a new technology. It's unclear how efficient they will be, but the storage of energy will be the next huge obstacle, the next huge step. If we have success and be a leader in this next step, we will lead to a change for the whole country. With regard to the miners in the Maritsa East mine, the union said, would you like 14,000 people to come demonstrate in the cities, in the center of Sofia? They're scaring people. Suitable schemes should be found under the EU funds so that these people don't lose their social status. I'm not losing about their jobs because no matter what we think of as an idea, it's possible to have renewable parks and storage parks. 14,000 jobs are hard to preserve, but what is easier to do is to preserve the social status of these people, including by making them shareholders in the future industrial clean complexes on the territory of Maritsa East. Thank you. Thanks a lot, and thank you for mentioning the new technology. I believe that all experts agree as regards the strange idea about helping coal-fired plants by carbon capture. This doesn't have good results. But as regards storage of energy, Bulgaria is a very good producer of batteries, and we have a very good sector of storage of energy with the hydro storage. Thank you for these viewpoints. And now I would like to hear Svetan Kiwanov, who is acting head of the representative office of the European Commission in Bulgaria. They have not formed a political party yet, but he can join our political panel. Hello, colleagues. Thank you for the invitation. Let me mention briefly what my viewpoint is so that we fit within the time framework. First, let me mention a few things about the private sector. We have representatives of the private sector here. It was well represented during the first panel. The green transition provides many opportunities for entrepreneurs using funding. Mr. Kilanov, can you hear us? It seems Mr. Kiwanov's network connection isn't very good.
Ако можем да спрем видеото, може би това...
Mr. Kiwanov, maybe you can turn off your camera and this will alleviate the internet traffic. Mr. Kiwanov, can you switch off your video? Have we lost Mr. Kiwanov? Mr. Kiwanov, can you hear me now? Yes, slightly better. I'm sorry, but did you hear anything or not? Just the first two sentences. Okay. I'd like to turn to the private sector. They should look at the different opportunities. They should take additional risk to implement more risky projects, which will result in better dividends and support the potential of the economy. The private sector should look for opportunities to cooperate with other European countries, companies. These are not new things. There are many good practices to be followed. There are many partners they can find in Europe. This will allow them to open up to new markets later for their innovative products. And lastly, the opportunity whenever we have a new sector of the economy developing, the companies who are first then have a competitive advantage. When this sector develops, grows, and brings benefits for the companies and society as a whole. As regards the political level, the investment and reform as part of the green transition, we're speaking a bit about the recovery plan or the territorial plans for just transition. They should be based on a wide political and social support. What are the sovereign? As far as the sovereign chooses its political representatives, they should provide the political parties necessary for the success. So it's key for everybody involved in the process to be informed in details about the rules and conditions, about the two things. We from the European Commission and the representative office in Sofia are at the disposal for any technical clarifications which might support the process so that it reaches its goals. We understand that we're in a complex political situation, but when speaking about serious reform, it's not so important to have concrete specific dates. It's not so important to have the cash flowing in to the Bulgarian economy. What's more important is to have reforms of a better quality. Regarding the documents, you're saying that people can find them on your website. I know that on the website of the Council of Ministers, there is a set of documents uploaded. Yes, the Bulgarian government has uploaded the plans and the annexes with the projects on the website of the government. So it would be useful for the private sector and for the political representatives to get informed and to see how far we have reached. But without wide support, this plan will not be successful. So I urge you to work towards achieving and getting wide support. And I'm at your disposal for any support. I also thank you. We have exhausted the topics that we wanted to discuss. This is a forward-looking discussion. I thank you for this. We spoke about energy transition, about transport, digitalization, agriculture, circular economy. We tried to outline the need for an inter-party consensus. This is only the beginning of this discussion. I hope that we can have it continued. in expert forms, but also to be open to society. Society knows. Bulgarian voters know that the future transition is inevitable, and the conversation with them is necessary. Taking from Mr. Panev's word, we are all shareholders, so to say, into what the Bulgarian economy will look like in the next decade and beyond. I hope that this discussion has at least partially contributed for this. I'd like to thank Maria Trifonova and all the other participants. I'd like to thank her again for structuring the debate. I'd like to thank Julian Popov, who, although is on the way, managed to moderate the second panel until the end. I wish you all a good day and see you next time.